Welcome to the Bitcoin Beat with Shaun and Jeff. I'm Shaun, and Jeff, well, unfortunately, I'm sad to say he's not with us today. He's traveling for work, so he's hitting up yet another conference out in Miami. Business will never stop. He hits up a lot of the conferences, so he'll be back next week joining us. I did want to mention for this week's Bitcoin Beat episode, won't be covering or discussing much about the conference in Vegas that just happened. I actually did an entire review this weekend about the entire event. In fact, at the end of every day, I did a summary of what happened in the day and things to look forward to the next day, starting on Sunday, day 0, we'll call it. And then I did a review after day 1, and then general mission day 2 and 3. And then I truncated it and kind of cut out some of the parts that probably aren't as interesting. But if you're curious about my thoughts on the conference, what I did, what I saw, what's coming up next year, you can check that out on my channel. But for today's show, I want to get it kicked off and talk about one of my favorite subjects, and that's this MicroStrategy weekly purchase. But no buys this week. Am I reading that right? Back to work next week. I guess I wasn't the only one that didn't have time to do any kind of work while I was in Vegas. I'm assuming maybe Fong Lee and Michael Saylor were too busy at the conference, at the talks, networking, at their True North event, or at all their events, and maybe they just didn't have a chance to buy. Actually, to be honest, I don't recall if it was the same time frame as other quarters. They have their earnings call coming up, and with the conference week, and then there's a lot of planning for these earning calls where they have to prepare their statements ahead of time. They all get checked and vetted, and making sure that they're careful in their forward-looking statements, and there's a lot of work involved in those. I don't remember, I didn't look back to see if maybe those announcements, those earning reports weeks were weeks that they had purchases or not. But they did make some purchases when they announced last week. So we're talking about the week before the conference, the Monday of the conference. They come out and said that they ended up buying another 3,273 Bitcoin, which brings them up to a total for the year, for the total that they hold completely, 818,334 Bitcoin. And every week I mention that, it feels odd and just weird to say that number out loud, that's how much they have. Now, there's a website that a gentleman started that I saw floating around X, really, really well done too, where he takes all the purchases that MicroStrategy has bought in Bitcoin and averaged out kind of what the weekly buys are, monthly buys, and extrapolates that out to when they hit 1 million. I've been doing the same thing, but just a little bit of a different spin. I focus on this year, not so much including their purchasing back in 2021, 2022, or what they did in the bear markets in 2023. I'm actually just taking this year. So when we look at just this year and you average out the amount of Bitcoin that they've purchased in 2026, even with this last week having 0 purchased, the average comes out to 8,578 Bitcoin every single week. And if we take it from this standpoint, a snapshot in time from today forward, and they just keep the same purchasing, not buying massive amounts more, not having a ton of these 0 weeks, but just the average of 2026, they will hit 1 million Bitcoin by September 29th. Not 2027, not 2030, not some future dystopian viewpoint of AI taking over the world and Bitcoins. No, this year, September 29th, 2026, they're on track right now to hit 1 million Bitcoin. And it gets even mind-boggling when you realize, at least for me it is, that's not the end target. Like, they're not saying we just want 1 million and we're going to stop buying. They're going to continue buying well past 1 million. But they're going to hit that 1 million target this year, very likely. And that's impressive. They have a lot of people that are trying to do what they do. Sure, there's 100 different treasury companies out there. There's probably a dozen or so that are close enough to see the top of the mountain. They're at base camp, we'll call it. They're not going to catch strategy. They have too far of a first mover advantage, where even if the price drops a lot, they'll be able to buy a lot more and nobody will still be able to catch them. But if the price goes up, with their different preferred strategies, and their ATM, they can just have a little bit more debt or issue other kinds of equities to be able to buy more than others can when the price gets high. So in either circumstance, they've already won that race. So that'll be something that I really look forward to seeing week over week. And of course, let's take one of the most important takes from this here is Bitcoin expert Peter Schiff, his comments on Michael Saylor not buying any. Well, I guess that helps explain why Bitcoin didn't go up over the past week. Peter, we appreciate your technical analysis and your takes on Bitcoin, which have really helped fuel the movement in Bitcoin for the decade plus that you've said we've been selling it and that we should just get rid of it. Peter, we appreciate you. You know, speaking about gold and Bitcoin ratios, Jeff, although he's out on a work trip, did do one of his updates when we've been tracking the purchases of, when we've been tracking the differences in gold and Bitcoin. And what's interesting, you've heard this weekly whenever we talk about it, the spread between the two, when we choose just a point in time, and in this particular instance, we're using the start of the conflict over in the Middle East. So there's time of turmoil, global uncertainty and fear, and just a flight to safety is normally what you see in these times. And 2 weeks ago, the spread between gold going up and Bitcoin going down was about 24%, which is massive in such a short window. And now, in the last 2 weeks, it's moved even further. The spread is 31%, which is not what we expect to see. And to quote Mike McGlone over at Bloomberg, we're just getting started. It's interesting because decades past, when you see these kind of conflicts come up, especially ones that affect energy and oil, which will then trickle down to a lot of other economic issues, there's been a flight to hard assets, and that hard asset was gold. And yet it's doing the exact opposite of what you'd expect. Now, understand, I mean, Jeff and I are still gold fans, but we just like better gold, right? We like gold that's more liquid, verifiable, trusted. It can move quickly and without any kind of issuer, and not having to have any kind of intermediary tell us we can use it or not. There's so many benefits to it, right? But you still would expect gold to go up in times of uncertainty. And now it's starting to become a longer time frame. That is just not happening. And it's pretty interesting to watch this. And I look forward to chatting more in depth with Jeff when he gets back about this, because I mean, he spells the whole thing out here. It's not a normal thing to see that happen. And when you start seeing this chart here that he has at the bottom, it's not stopping anytime soon, no matter what Bloomberg analyst thinks. So that's definitely something we want to keep an eye on. In fact, I didn't get a chance to finish it, but Paula, who I met at the conference last week, talked about it with Larry Lepard, and they went into it in some detail in reference to gold and what it's doing, and kind of what we expect, and whatever is not happening with gold. I'm going to finish that here probably after this afternoon, but definitely check that out. Her podcast title is the name of her show is The Bitcoin Edge. Had a chance to talk with her, not just about our podcast, but in general, some good points, and she's been doing it a while, and she was a good source of knowledge and had some recommendations. But definitely give her a follow. I'll toss a link to her show in the show notes down below. That's basically what I'd like to cover as far as this week when we talk about the important news that we try to cover every week. The one thing I want to discuss that, although I'm not talking much about the Vegas conference, there's a lot of events coming up. And like, for example, there's consensus right now in Miami. Now, let's be honest, this isn't a Bitcoin-focused conference. It's a lot more about the tech, smart contracts, finance systems. I used to call it the Ethereum conference. That's probably not an exactly accurate description, but my point is it's a big conference. It's one that's well attended. People that we follow in the Bitcoin space are there. So it's important to keep on the radars. I don't know if that's one I'll ever go to. This one here is kind of interesting. The Bitcoin is for everyone. This is a conference. I know it happened last year. Jeff went to it. This year it's going to happen later this month, May 2nd to 23rd in Portland. And that one seems pretty interesting and enticing. I didn't have plans to go to that, but I may be considering it. This is one that, when we talk about these conferences, sure, the main one, the Bitcoin Magazine one, or the Nakamoto one, or whatever we're calling it now, that's the flagship conference. That's the big one. That's the one everybody should be going to, or at least looking towards, as far as where the industry is going. But these smaller conferences obviously have a lot more signal to noise, and this is no different than this one. That's all I hear from some of these smaller ones, and that's not uncommon. It's not just a Bitcoin thing, but there is a difference. There's a little bit of a nuance there. I used to go to a lot of like security conferences, and those security conferences like DEF CON out in Vegas were important and big, and I learned a lot, met a lot of awesome people. I ended up not going to those after 2013 and on, but there were some smaller security conventions and conferences, but they were more niche like markets. They focus on one aspect, a smaller point or a smaller part of the ecosystem. So you had to really kind of be in that space or that part of the product to get value from it. But in Bitcoin, these conferences, the smaller ones, it's not like that. These are still for everybody. I know I'm, no pun intended for the name of this one, for Bitcoin is for everyone, but you can get it, if you can get value from it if you're a Bitcoiner. You don't have to be a developer and a coder. You don't have to be, your life wrapped entirely around Nostr. You don't have to be in the political sphere and politics of it. You don't have to be in wallet development and onboarding. You don't have to be in content creation. Literally, these smaller events are for everybody, and they're definitely something to check out. There's also, I don't have a link for it, but there's a BitBlock Boom out in Texas. That's not until next year, because it already happened this year. That's one that I do regret not going to, and I should go to because it's closer. And all of these, to be honest with you, if you're in this part of the US, you should go support it. We always want to support those that support us, but if you can get there, you could drive there. If you're that close, you're not going to regret spending the time and money and going to those conferences. There's another one that's coming up here that is kind of just being teased here, and that's our good old friend Fred Krueger. He's talking about Bitcoin Alpha later in October. That was Bitcoin Alpha, which was formerly kind of Bitcoin First before some drama, and that ended, which really was filling a void from Pacific Bitcoin, which, from some drama and business things that stopped happening. And so anyway, even with all the drama surrounding it, the conference that goes out there, Santa Monica, LA area, it's worth going to. There's the whole thing, the whole key takeaway, if you watch my recap of the Vegas conference, is it's less about the conference, the tracks, the speakers. It's more about the people that you get to reconnect with and meet for the first time. And all of these side conferences, all these smaller ones, however you want to describe these, there's not much better value than those. So definitely hit one of those up if you get the opportunity to. I know you won't be disappointed. One housekeeping note before you go, I could use some of your help. We're moving the podcast to its own separate dedicated channel. So look for that. We'll make some announcements on X, and next week's episode, we'll talk a little bit about that, just so you know how to follow us and watch us there. But starting basically a new channel from scratch, we really could use your help early on. So if you could look for that announcement, subscribe to the channel as soon as you can. Obviously, like any videos that are posted on there, but comments really do help out. Not only because it gives Jeff and I feedback on things you're interested in, but things we can cover on next episodes. It does help the algorithm to know that there's a lot more engagement on it, but it cues us into things that you want to hear more of. And we met a lot of great Bitcoiners in Vegas over last week, and a few of them are coming on our show, and they're people that I think not only you as the viewer would get value from, but people that Jeff and I want to talk to and get in the weeds into their specific areas of expertise and kind of extract that from them and learn about it more. We even got a pretty big name that's already committed to coming on. We're just literally just working out scheduling. That might be about 2 months out or so. A little nervous, a little anxious about that, but we'll be ready for that interview coming up. So that channel will still have our Bitcoin Beat weekly reviews, kind of our mailbag Monday, every Monday. But then we'll have a kind of an interview track and a couple other things coming down the pipeline soon. So stay tuned for that. Help us out. Share those, like those, subscribe to them, and just watch for that. And we'd appreciate your help on that. Well, that'll wrap up for this show. If you don't have any Bitcoin yet, get off of zero. But if you do have Bitcoin, keep stacking sats. We'll see you next week when Jeff returns. Take care, everyone.